I was stringing fairy lights around the caf window when I heard the phone ring. It was soft, barely audible over the hum of the heater, but something about the tone in Evelyn Harrington's voice when I picked up made my hands go cold. She didn't even start with a greeting. "Melissa, I'm calling about Christmas." I stood still, lights dangling from my arm like limp ribbon. I already knew this wasn't going to be festive. "David mentioned you were planning to come, but after talking with Richard and Grace, we think it's best if you and David sit this one out." Her voice was clipped, tight with that specific kind of politeness that only ever masked judgment. "With the situation at the caf," she continued, "we just feel it might cast a shadow over the holiday spirit." I bit down hard on my tongue. She wasn't just disinviting us. She was saying my presence was too much of a reminder that we'd failed. 2 hours later, I told David. He was standing in our tiny kitchen above the caf, still wearing his flour-dusted apron from that morning's cinnamon bun rush. "They said what?" His face moved through confusion, disbelief, then landed on anger. It was rare for David to lose his temper, but this wasn't just about a dinner. It was about the years of subtle jabs, the thinly veiled condescension, the way his family had always seen me as a charming outsider they tolerated, not truly accepted. "They don't want us there because of the caf," I said flatly. "They don't want failure under the tree." He stared at me, eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. Sadness? Shame? But I saw what he didn't say. "They never respected you. They tolerated you because I was successful. Before I was the banker's quirky wife." Now, I was the reminder that he'd given up a high-rise job for a two-person dream that was sinking fast. 6 months earlier, we had been fearless. David had left his high-paying job in finance to help me chase a vision, a fusion caf, part cozy breakfast nook, part cultural celebration. We named it Clear Day Caf. It had huge windows, warm oak counters, and a menu that mixed matcha lattes with my mother's red bean buns, dantats, and flaky croissants. In those early days, it felt like anything was possible. Then the street construction began. Then the law firm across the street shut down. Then inflation hit. Then the foot traffic disappeared. By winter, the caf wasn't just struggling, it was sinking. We were down to 2 employees. David and I were doing everything ourselves: baking, brewing, books, cleaning. What made it worse? The silence. Not once had Evelyn or Richard offered to stop by. They hadn't stepped foot in the caf since our grand opening, where Evelyn had sniffed and said, "Well, I suppose everyone needs a hobby." It was never a hobby. It was our home, our heart, a dream built from scratch with the money we'd saved during years of corporate grind. But none of that mattered to the Harringtons. To them, we had traded gold for dust. That night, David paced the living room. "I'm calling her," he said. I reached for his arm. "Don't. Mel, this is beyond. What will it change?" I asked. She made up her mind. "They always do." He looked at me, and for the first time since we opened the caf, he looked unsure. "You really don't want to go?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I don't want to pretend. Not this year. Not again." I tried to sound defiant, but truthfully, I was exhausted. Exhausted from the pressure to prove myself to a family that saw me as an outsider. Exhausted from the 16-hour caf days. Exhausted from watching customers pass our shop without a second glance. I forced a smile. "Let's have our own Christmas. Just us in our tiny apartment, with burnt cookies and leftover scones." David looked at me, eyes softening. Then he pulled me into his arms. "We're going to be okay," he whispered. "How can you be so sure?" He leaned back, a spark behind his tired eyes. "Because I know something they don't." And just like that, he planted a seed of hope, a flicker of something I hadn't felt in weeks. A reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, we weren't at the end of our story but somewhere near the middle of a turning point. The week before Christmas, the caf was silent, not the cozy kind of silence, filled with the soft clinking of mugs and conversation. No, this was the kind of silence that echoed the absence of customers, the emptiness of chairs, the quiet dread of unsold pastries. I sat at the corner table by the window, staring at the untouched tray of almond matcha tarts I'd baked that morning. My mother's recipe, usually a hit. Today, not one sold. David walked in from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "No one since 11? Not unless you count the mailman." He exhaled slowly and sank into the seat across from me. It was the same every day now. Mornings started hopeful. Afternoons ended with leftovers, and the slow, suffocating question neither of us dared ask out loud: what if this doesn't work? That evening, I found myself scrolling through photos on my phone. The grand opening, bright flowers, a line out the door, my parents beaming beside the register. Even Evelyn had come that day, dressed in an ivory coat and pearls, sipping our ginger lavender tea with the faintest expression of polite interest. I remember her saying, "It's quaint, but don't expect much staying power. Most new businesses fold in the first year." I didn't think much of it then, but now, we were 6 months in, and folding felt like a very real possibility. Christmas Day came quietly. David and I opened 2 gifts each. We shared dumplings for dinner and watched a movie. Neither of us finished. Somewhere in the middle of the second act, I started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet tears that I couldn't stop. David didn't try to fix it. He just held me. We didn't talk about the Harringtons. We didn't need to, but I knew he was thinking about them. Then came January, a new year, but it didn't feel new. It felt like the same hard grind with a different number. One freezing Thursday afternoon, just as I was about to lock up early, a man stepped in from the cold. He wore a thick wool coat and wire-framed glasses. Familiar. I recognized him instantly. Marcus. Jang, the man who'd visited us several times in the fall. He always ordered the same thing: black sesame latte, no sugar, and a pineapple bun. He always sat quietly, reading reports or sketching in a leather notebook. And then he disappeared. "Sorry. We're just about to close," I said automatically. Marcus smiled. "I know. I just needed 5 minutes." I hesitated, then nodded. "Take your time." He looked around, eyes scanning the cafe's interior, the hand-lettered menu, the shelves lined with tea tins, the mismatched chairs we thrifted for charm. "You didn't change a thing," he said, settling into his usual table. "No reason to," I said, forcing a smile. "Change costs money." He looked at me. "And how's business?" I gave the polite answer first. "We're staying afloat." Then, before I could stop myself, the truth spilled out. "We're sinking, slowly. We're cutting hours, trying to renegotiate the lease. And I'm debating whether to make all our pastries from bulk mix just to save prep time." I hadn't planned on saying any of that, but something about his calm presence opened a floodgate. He listened. No judgment, just silence. Then he stood, walked over to the counter, and slid a card across the wood. "Expect a call tomorrow. My partners are ready." I blinked. "Ready for what?" "To invest," he said simply. "Not just in your calf, in you." The call came the next morning. East-West Ventures, a boutique investment group with a focus on cultural hospitality spaces. They'd been quietly evaluating small underdog businesses with big visions. Apparently, we were one of them. They weren't offering just a loan. They were offering a partnership: capital, mentorship, marketing, connections, the kind of support we never dared dream of. And the amount? Enough to pay off our business loans, renovate the second floor, update our kitchen, and open a second location. "There's one more thing," Marcus said during the final Zoom call. He leaned in slightly, smiling like he was about to reveal a twist ending. "We've also acquired a hospitality group that includes a country club in Oakdale. You might know it." I choked on my tea. "Oakdale Country Club?" I asked. "The one with the no jeans policy and champagne brunches." "The very same," he said. "Let's just say it needs a culture refresh, and we're seeking consultants who know how to build inclusive, community-driven hospitality spaces." He looked at me pointedly. "I don't know the first thing about running a country club," I said carefully. Marcus smiled. "You know how to make people feel welcome. You know how to build something from nothing. That's what we need." I stared at the ceiling that night, the hum of the radiator lulling me to sleep. From disinvited at Christmas to being invited to reshape the very institution that once shut us out. Life wasn't just offering a second chance. It was setting the table and asking if I'd like to host. By the time February rolled in, we were busier than we'd been in months, but for once, it wasn't out of panic. Thanks to the investment from East-West Ventures, we were breathing again. We upgraded our kitchen equipment, brought back to our laid-off staff, and finally had the funds to renovate the empty second floor above the caf. What was once an unused storage space was now being transformed into a warm, stylish event venue with exposed brick, soft lantern lighting, and seating for 100. David called it our second act. But I knew it was something more. It was our reinvention. And then came Oakdale, Marcus wasn't joking when he said the country club needed refreshing. When I stepped into their boardroom for the first time, the energy was ice cold. The decor screamed old money heavy wood panels, mounted fox heads, and photos of men in matching blazers spanning decades. I didn't see a single woman or person of color on those walls. The club's general manager, a man named Clifford, greeted me with a stiff nod. "You're the consultant?" His tone made it clear what he thought of me, the calf girl brought in to make the club trendy. "Yes," I said, shaking his hand firmly. "And I'm here to help this place survive the next 10 years. He blinked, caught off guard. I smiled. "I've reviewed your numbers," I continued. "Membership's down 18% over the past 3 years. Your average age is 64. Your event bookings have halved. If you don't modernize, you won't survive." The silence was heavy. The room didn't like being told they were irrelevant, but truth doesn't always come softly. In the following weeks, I split my time between Clear Day Caf and the club project. At the Caf, we launched new seasonal menus, filled the event calendar, and slowly became a community favorite again. At the club, I got to work with Marcus and his team behind me. We initiated policy reviews, restructured staff, and proposed big shifts: a diversity-forward hiring approach, inclusive event programming, flexible membership options, cultural celebrations beyond the standard champagne brunch. Pushback came fast and loud, but so did the quiet support from junior staff, new board members, and the few progressive voices long stifled in the background. We weren't just fixing the club, we were reimagining what it could be. Meanwhile, something poetic was happening across town. We signed the lease for our second location in Oakdale, just 2 blocks from the country club. It was a beautiful corner space in a historic building with big windows and foot traffic from nearby boutiques. A perfect mix of charm and prestige. David called it Harrington irony. I called it fate. When I told him the soft opening would land mid-August, he raised an eyebrow. "That's the week of my parents' anniversary party," he said. "Oh," I asked innocently. "You think they'll stop by?" He smirked. "Only if it comes with caviar and ego stroking." We both laughed, but deep down, I was already planning something bigger. Then the call came. Evelyn Harrington. It was a bright July morning. I had just finished finalizing the new club dress code policy, one that eliminated the archaic "no pants for women" rule, when my phone buzzed. "Melissa, darling," Evelyn said, voice coated in fake sweetness. "I hear such lovely things about your little calf these days. Grace says the upstairs space is quite elegant." I waited. Then came the real reason. "We've had to cancel our original venue for our anniversary party. Staffing issues at the club. Can you believe it? We were wondering if your calf might be available as a backup option." Backup option? Right. I inhaled deeply. "We do have some availability," I said. "Let me check." I didn't mention that we had been keeping that exact weekend clear for the soft opening of our Oakdale calf. When Evelyn and Richard came to tour the space, they were visibly stunned. Gone was the small, casual upstairs room they probably expected. In its place was a refined, minimalistic space with touches of Asian elegance: cherry blossom prints, brass fixtures, linen napkins, and an open layout that allowed for light, conversation, and movement. "This is quite tasteful," Evelyn said. "I didn't expect it to be so modern," Richard added, peering at the wall art. "We try to reflect our values: community, culture, and quality," I said simply. They asked about capacity, food options, parking. Then Evelyn glanced sideways. "You must be quite busy these days." "We are," I said. "In fact, I've also been consulting on the restructuring of a certain country club nearby." Evelyn's smile froze. You're involved with Oakdale?" she asked. "Executive director," I said, matching her gaze. "I'll be overseeing all operations starting this fall." Her lips parted slightly. She looked to Richard, who raised his eyebrows. "You've certainly been productive," she said finally. I nodded. "We've had a lot of support." "From who, if I may ask?" "East-West Ventures," I said calmly. "The same investors who believed in this calf when others thought it was just a hobby. They signed the contract that day, August 15th. 100 guests, elegant dinner service, full customization. The same people who disinvited us from Christmas were now relying on us to host the biggest social event of their year." That night, David poured 2 glasses of plum wine and handed me one. "To poetic justice?" he said. I raised my glass, but shook my head. "No, to building something they never saw coming." He smiled. "Same thing." The weeks leading up to the Harringtons' anniversary party were a blur of event orders, club renovations, and the final phase of our Oakdale Caf opening. By day, I balanced caf meetings and menu tastings. By night, I was reviewing contracts, approving new staff hires, and fielding questions from the country club's senior board, most of whom had just discovered that their new executive director was a woman who had never once played a round of golf. One member, an elderly man named Charles, had actually asked during my second board meeting, "So, where exactly did you study hospitality? Was it abroad?" "No, Charles," I said. "I studied hospitality while mopping my own floors, running a business from scratch, and building a loyal customer base out of nothing. All local." He'd blinked twice and never asked another question again. Meanwhile, Evelyn began to show a suspicious level of interest in me. She called me twice with follow-up questions about linen colors and canap flavors. Her tone had shifted from fake sweet to something more cautious, like she was starting to realize I wasn't just the daughter of a grocery store owner anymore. I sensed she was trying to understand how we'd come so far, so fast, and I could feel it unnerving her. Then came the Oakdale Country Club reveal. We didn't make a grand announcement. Instead, we planned it quietly, an internal club newsletter that went out to members just 3 days before the Harringtons event. Inside it, a glowing write-up about the club's exciting new direction, a full-page photo of me beside Marcus Jang, smiling in front of the main ballroom, and the headline, "Meet the new face of Oakdale Hospitality. Melissa Chin leads club into a bold future." David showed me the email while I was plating a batch of jasmine lemon bars. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. "Evelyn," I answered with the most polite voice I could muster. "Melissa," she began, sounding winded. "What exactly does executive director mean?" I smiled. "It means I run the show, Evelyn. All of it. Programming, events, community outreach, membership standards, staff, budgets, you name it." There was silence on the other end. "Then, you've certainly kept busy. I suppose you could say that." "This is quite a change. It seems no one informed us." I let the pause hang in the air like a curtain waiting to fall. Then I answered, "We weren't invited to much lately. Hard to share good news through closed doors." She went quiet. Again, August 15th arrived glorious and hot. Our event space glowed with soft cream gold tones. Each table featured fresh orchids and hand-folded menus printed with Evelyn and Richard's names. The air smelled like honey, citrus, and pride. The guest list was filled with Oakdale's social royalty, men in suits, women in silk. Some had known me only as the caf girl. Tonight, they saw something else. Evelyn and Richard arrived early, dressed to impress. Evelyn walked in like a queen inspecting her palace. "This looks impressive," she said. "It's our pleasure," I said warmly, but with a firmness she couldn't quite read. Then came the question, "Is the country club newsletter accurate?" "Yes," I said. "So, you're now overseeing everything at Oakdale?" I nodded. "Everything." Her lips pursed. "And this caf, will you still have time for it?" I smiled. "We just opened our second location. I think we're managing just fine." The party moved into full swing by p.m. The band played soft jazz. The waitstaff glided across the floor with precision. Guests sipped lychee spritzers and nibbled on bao sliders and crab cakes. I moved quietly from table to table, checking in, smiling, correcting nothing because there was nothing to fix. Just before the toast, Richard approached me. "Melissa," he said, his voice lower than usual, "you've done well." I didn't expect. He trailed off. "You didn't expect me." I finished for him. He hesitated. "Not like this." I nodded. "That's okay. I wasn't building this for your expectations anyway." He gave a slow, somewhat respectful nod. "Still, it's impressive. You've earned more than a little respect." I didn't say thank you. I didn't need to. I just replied, "That was always the plan." And then, the final moment came. Just as dessert was being served, a hush fell over the room. Marcus Jang walked in dressed in an understated gray suit. He wasn't a celebrity, but enough of Oakdale's elite knew his name to pay attention. Evelyn's eyes went wide as she recognized him from the country club newsletter. Marcus made his way to me, shook my hand, and said just loud enough for Evelyn to hear, "Melissa, the board and I just finalized the next event for Oakdale. We'd love for you to lead it personally." I smiled. "Of course, I'll add it to my calendar." Evelyn stepped forward, her voice tight. "Mr. Jang, it's such a pleasure. I didn't realize you and Melissa were so involved." "Marcus," smiled, that CEO smile of his calm, pleasant, but cold beneath. Melissa is one of our strongest partners, he said. Frankly, Oakdale needed her. We all do. The look on Evelyn's face in that moment shocked, cornered, and trying desperately not to show it was something I'll carry with me forever. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the last napkin was folded, I stood alone in the dim caf, breathing in the quiet. We had done it, but more than that, we had changed the game. Not just for us, but for what people like us could achieve. And the best part, they hadn't seen it coming. The Monday after the Harringtons' anniversary party, the caf was quiet, but it wasn't the same silence that haunted us months ago. This time, it was peace. And no panic, no desperation, just the quiet satisfaction of a job well done and the calm before our next leap. David and I sat upstairs with cups of jasmine green tea, reviewing early feedback from the event. 5 people already inquired about booking weddings, he said, scrolling through emails. One of them's on the Oakdale Chamber Board. Good, I said with a small smile. Let them come see what hospitality looks like when it isn't stuck in 1954, David chuckled. You're enjoying this a little too much. I tilted my head. You're not? He leaned forward, voice softer. You know what I enjoy most? I looked at him. That look on your face, when you realize you're not trying to prove yourself to anyone anymore. He was right. Something inside me had shifted. For years, I tried to earn the approval of people who saw me as less polished, less wealthy, less worthy. I twisted myself into knots trying to bridge that invisible gap between outsider and accepted. But the truth was, their approval was never the point. The real victory wasn't the party, or the caf, or even the club. It was owning my identity, my ambition, my power. 2 weeks later, I stood in the main dining hall of the Oakdale Country Club, now completely redesigned. Gone were the mounted animal heads and stodgy oil paintings. In their place, local art, soft lighting, and design elements inspired by cultures around the world. We'd opened membership applications to people previously excluded: single parents, small business owners, immigrants. There was even a new mentorship program for young professionals interested in hospitality leadership. I gave a brief speech to the board. This isn't just about aesthetics. It's about access, community, evolving with time instead of fighting it. And for the first time, I wasn't interrupted. Not once. They listened. Christmas rolled around again. The Harringtons hosted a Christmas dinner, and this time, David and I were invited. We sat at the long mahogany table under chandeliers I used to find intimidating. Evelyn greeted me with a carefully measured tone. Melissa, we've been hearing wonderful things about Oakdale's changes. Some of the other clubs are quite curious. I smiled politely, happy to answer questions if they're serious about real change. She raised her glass. To progress then. I clinked my glass gently against hers. To progress. Later, while sipping tea on the back veranda, Grace slid into the seat beside me. You know, she said, if you had told me a year ago that Melissa Chin would be the most talked about name at Oakdale, I would have bet you were dreaming. I was, I replied, but dreaming wasn't the hard part. She looked over. What was? Not giving up when no one believed it could be real. Spring brought even more growth. Our Oakdale caf officially outperformed the original. Within its first quarter, we started discussing a third location, this time near a university campus. Marcus invited me to speak at a hospitality summit. I talked about inclusion, vision, and what it meant to redefine prestige. And most unexpectedly, I began mentoring a young Chinese-American woman named Erin who had dreams of opening a bakery but feared she'd be laughed out of the neighborhood she lived in. I told her something I wish someone had told me. The people who dismiss your dreams aren't the ones who get to define your future. You do. And the only approval you need is your own. She cried. I cried with her. One afternoon, I returned to the caf early and found David repainting a small wooden sign from our very first day. Clear Day Cafest. Hope, it used to say. Now he'd changed it too. Clear Day Caf, where dreams are taken seriously. He looked up and smiled. Think we've earned it? I walked over, ran my fingers along the paint, and nodded. We earned every letter. That summer, I finally let go. Let go of bitterness. Let go of the idea that I had to win to be worthy. Let go of the weight I'd carried for years trying to be enough for a family that had already decided who I was. And in that letting go, I found something bigger: freedom, fulfillment, pride. Not pride in being better than them, but pride in building something real, beautiful, and lasting. On my terms.